Completing a triathlon can be a grueling physical feat, but the challenge of training, the camaraderie among participants, and the sense of accomplishment when you cross the finish line are just a few reasons why so many people are deciding to give triathlons a try. Sure, the triathlon bug bites some of us harder than others, but even if you just want to check this off your bucket list, there are a few key things you need to know before you register for your first one. So in today's video, we'll be going over our top 10 training tips for triathlete enthusiasts before embarking on your first triathlon. Stay tuned. If you're new to the channel, make sure to click the subscribe button and tap the notification bell to get notified of our latest video. Number 1. Signing up for the right race and buying the right gear. For many people, the word triathlon conjures up images of the Ironman race series, which consists of a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and a 26.2 mile run. Yes, that is a full marathon. But if you're not quite ready for that just yet, there are plenty of shorter triathlon options to choose from, as you'll see on screen. On the other end of the distance spectrum, an ultra triathlon is anything longer than a full Ironman. If you're new to the sport, your best bet is to start with a sprint triathlon. This will allow you to ease into multi-sport training, building the foundation of strength, power, and cardiovascular endurance necessary to tackle longer distances without increasing your risk of overtraining or injury. Plus, training for a sprint triathlon involves a relatively low time commitment, so you can get a taste for the sport without having to completely rearrange your life. Once you catch the triathlon bug, you'll likely start geeking out over the latest bikes, the newest swim tech, and cutting-edge shoes. But all of that can drain your wallet, and it's really not necessary in the beginning. For your first triathlon, especially if you're preparing for a sprint triathlon, all you need are a few basic pieces of equipment, as you'll see on screen. For a swimsuit, if you'll be racing in chilly conditions, you might also want to consider buying a wetsuit. For a bicycle, you don't need to be fancy. A road, mountain, or hybrid bike will do the trick as long as it fits you and is in good working order. For cycling shorts, they are a must, especially if chafing and saddle sores don't appeal to you. For cycling shoes and clipless pedals, these aren't necessarily essential, but they are worthwhile if you decide to continue with triathlons, as they can increase your power and efficiency on the bike. For running shoes, you don't have to break the bank, but it's important to find the best running shoes for you. Head to your local running store to get fitted by a salesperson who can help determine the right running shoes for you, depending on your biomechanics and athletic needs. Number 2. Train for long slow distance 2 to 3 times per week. Cycling makes up the largest part of the race, so it only makes sense that it should take up the largest chunk of your training. Focus on building endurance with longer, steady state rides before you start adding speed work to the mix in the form of tempo rides and intervals. Start with 2 to 3 per week for about 2 to 3 hours per training session. The first phase of any smart periodized training plan, which is a training plan divided into blocks that focus on specific goals or skills, is to build or reinforce a strong aerobic base. So regardless of whether you're a noob or a veteran, you're going to spend a couple of months doing LSD, which is commonly referred to as the foundation or base miles. The goal is to increase the amount of work your body can do before becoming fatigued, because in conjunction, you're teaching your body to use fat instead of glucose primarily as its go-to fuel source. This is incredibly important because for all intents and purposes, your body has an almost limitless supply of fat, even if you're an elite competitor. That makes it a preferable fuel to glucose, which is easier to burn but stored in more limited quantities. But to access fat as fuel and to teach your body to burn blubber more efficiently, your heart rate needs to stay out of the red zone, which is commonly referred to as the lactate threshold. Keep your pace conversational. If you find it difficult to speak more than a sentence or two at a time, dial it back just a bit. You should be pedaling hard enough to work up a sweat, but not so hard that it becomes difficult to talk. Number 3. Perform 1 to 2 short interval workouts for 30 minutes. To improve your aerobic capacity, cellular energy production, power generation, endurance, stamina, and speed, short interval workouts will do wonders for you. During this 30-minute training session, you're going to exercise above your lactate threshold, but fair warning, it's going to burn like hell. Most cyclists can only pedal for 5-minute stretches at the intensity required for these intervals, and then BAM! Out go the lights. However, the pain is well worth the payoff. new riders can improve their VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen their bodies can utilize during these intense efforts. And experienced riders can boost their power and speed when operating at their lactate threshold. What's more, all levels of cyclists can improve their endurance during this training. And here's a bonus: if your primary goal is to lose weight, the benefits of interval training are just as enticing. As research shows, it can help you lose more body fat than with steady state cardio. So how do you go about reaping these rewards? Perform 2 to 4 intervals, each of which should encompass 4 minutes of hard effort and 4 minutes of active rest, during which you can bring your cadence down to that of a leisurely ride. You'll get the greatest benefits if you pedal as hard as you can, recover, and then do the next one just as hard. If you don't recover sufficiently between intervals, your training effect will be diminished. So remember, being smart about how you perform each workout is just as important as incorporating all of them into your training program. Number 4, add a one-tempo ride or one SST workout to your training. The one-tempo ride workout is often described as a sustainable discomfort workout because the goal tempo pace to achieve is the hardest intensity you can sustain for 1 hour while remaining aerobic. Although beneficial during any phase of training, tempo rides are particularly important towards the end of the base building phase, as they help prepare your body for the transition from straight LSD to training that includes shorter, harder speed work. You can either do a tempo session at the end of an LSD ride simply by ramping up your pace during the last hour, or perform a dedicated hour-long tempo workout. Either way, it's important that you perform the ride with as few interruptions as possible. You're teaching your body to sustain high-intensity effort. This is no time to rest. Now, during an SST training, otherwise known as sweet spot training, the goal is to increase both endurance and functional threshold power during an hour's worth of training time. The efforts between tempo pace and lactate threshold fall into what coaches generally refer to as the sweet spot, as training in this zone, usually in the form of long intervals, provides an ideal balance of intensity and volume for increasing the most critical performance metrics, functional threshold power. So in short, sweet spot training helps increase the speed and power you can sustain during high intensity exercise. When performing your SST, pick a stretch of road that's flat or that has a steady 3 to 5% grade. Do 3 15-minute intervals, recovering at an easy cadence for 7 to 8 minutes between each one. Generally, the interval pace should be hard enough so that talking becomes nearly impossible and about 10 beats below your threshold heart rate. Number 5. When swimming, focus on form and endurance first. Swimming should be a workout you do twice a week. Unless you're an accomplished swimmer, you'll likely find this discipline the most challenging. Our advice is to invest in some adult swim classes to simultaneously improve technique and develop fitness. Once you're comfortable in the pool, consider occasionally taking your swim workout into open water, such as an ocean or a lake. You won't believe how much this can actually ease your anxiety when it comes to rest day. Now, once you've achieved the correct form, you can start working on your endurance. Begin by doing shorter sets to get the proper recovery time in between. Don't worry if at the beginning you're struggling in the pool. If this is the case, spend more time standing at the end of the lane catching your breath before jumping back in. Once you've mastered the shorter sets, you can move on to the next level. Remember, your endurance will come over time in your training. Number 6. Perform the right swimming workout. Let's assume that you have the correct form and can also swim for at least 400 meters. This means that you can do 16 laps and the standard 25-meter pool. Give one of the following workouts a try. Starting with the shorter sessions will allow you to control your form throughout the workout, because if fatigue kicks in, your technique will soon fall apart. Once you feel at ease with the shorter ones, you can move on to the longer ones. Now, once you can manage the 1200-meter workout easily, you can start focusing more on speed, taking note of the time you need to complete the overall workout or just the single sets. Number 7. Train for running 1 to 2 times per week. The running leg of a sprint triathlon is only 3 miles, so your training regimen is as simple as lacing up and logging in some miles. But as you progress towards longer events, you'll need to train harder and weave in some speed work. If you're competing in a half Ironman, for example, you'll need to be prepared to run a half marathon. Even if you're a seasoned runner, keep in mind the final leg of a triathlon isn't like the typical road race. You're transitioning from the bike, so your legs aren't fresh, for example. Prepare for that by adding bike to run sessions to your routine once your body has adjusted to the rigors of multi-sport training, which should be just after a few weeks. These are exactly what they sound like. Cycle for a while and then jump off the bike and start running, pausing only long enough to switch your shoes. Number 8. Train for a 5K first. A 5K is only 3.1 miles, so it's short enough to be manageable and long enough to really start to burn. It's the perfect distance to teach you how to focus your training on a specific goal, even if you're starting off as a non-runner. The 5K is great for runners of all ages, in fact, and it'll help you gauge how you'll do for longer distances without overrunning your life. So grab your favorite training partner or shoes and go out there and get on the road. Number 9. Do not train beyond a 10K. Remember, we are running a sprint triathlon. Training for anything over a 10K will not be wise to do. And even so, 6.2 miles is a pretty major accomplishment. Once you run a 10K, you can no longer refer to yourself as a non-runner because now you have entered a new level of runnership. So pat yourself on the back. And finally, number 10, don't neglect strength training entirely. Triathlons are mostly endurance-based, but don't miss out on the benefits of strength training. Recreational endurance athletes often skip this aspect of training, and honestly, that's a big mistake. Research suggests strength training can increase your speed, running economy, and time to exhaustion. If you're doing 5 days of cardio per week, for example, give strength training its own day. If you're doing cardio 6 days per week, perform your strength training on the same day as a distance cycling or a running workout. Here's a quick bonus tip. Dedicate 1 day strictly to recovery. I understand, most of us have been there where we hate taking off rest day, but it's highly advisable to plan a recovery day each week, especially when you're just starting out. Either take the entire day off or do active recovery in the form of very light swim or a restorative practice like yoga. Use this time to reboot physically and mentally, and try to keep it as stress-free as possible. So there you have it, our top 10 tips for triathlete beginners. If you enjoyed today's content, make sure to smash the like button as it helps support the channel and help with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.